Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. I want to start this hour with a couple of items that have to do with the values issues and religious liberty, because we place those as the highest priority issues. You know, Bob McGinnis was saying in our conversation that the Pentagon now is, even though they're not obligated to do it, even by the Supreme Court decision, considering granting same-sex benefits or benefits to partners in same-sex marriages. They would have to be married in order to qualify for the benefits, so they're going to reverse a policy. They were intending to give certain benefits, like housing and other benefits, to those that were simply in homosexual partnerships, married or not. Now they're saying we're just going to give them to homosexual couples that are married. We're going to yank them from the homosexuals that have partners but are not married. But we're going to compensate for that by giving you a special 10-day leave that nobody else in the military gets. We're going to give you a special 10-day leave. If you want to go off, you want to fly off to some state where you can get married, we are going to let you do that. Now, Christie, a lot of speculation about Christie and his candidacy, possible candidacy for 2016. And one question has to do with his stance on the whole issue of homosexuality and the homosexual agenda. He's going to have to declare himself right away. He's got a bill on his desk that would ban reparative therapy for teenagers who are dealing with unwanted same-sex attractions. In other words, you got a teenager, has unwanted same-sex attractions. He's attracted to members of the same sex but doesn't want to be, doesn't want to give into it, wants to overcome it, wants to redirect his sexual energy. This New Jersey law would make it illegal to give him help. Counselors in New Jersey would run the risk of losing their counseling licenses, and worse, if they tried to help somebody, a teenager, that came to them with that kind of problem, even if the parents wanted the child to get that kind of help. It would be against the law no matter who wants it. Whether the child wants it, whether the parent wants it, doesn't matter. And this is sitting on Christie's desk right now. He's got to either sign it, or he's got to veto it, or he can just ignore it and sit there and let it wait till it becomes law. And it will, without his signature, after a certain period of time. Now, this is obviously something, if Christie is a values candidate at all, he ought to veto this thing, and he should have vetoed it by now. Should have vetoed it as soon as it got to his desk. You know, when it's something he cares about. Remember that millionaire's tax came to his desk? That millionaire's tax bill came to his desk, and he vetoed it. He almost walked out of his office to get that bill before it could be delivered to him to veto it. So Christie has no problem vetoing a bill that he thinks is objectionable. Well, this is all kinds of objectionable stuff in it, and he ought to veto it. And the fact that he hasn't yet, the fact that he hasn't declared a position on it, probably an indication that values voters are going to have to look somewhere else other than Christie for a candidate in 2016. You know, I brought you the story a couple weeks ago about the FBI busting these human trafficking rings. Terrible, terrible thing. 105 young victims, almost all of them women, kidnapped and then sold into the sex trade. It's a terrible thing. And, you know, slavery's still alive and well. And by the way, sex slavery is part and parcel of Islam. It's still being practiced all over the world. So sex slavery, absolutely just fine in the religion of Islam. And a lot of the places where this trafficking in sex slaves is taking place is in Muslim countries, and they're being brought to the U.S. and then used for sexual trafficking purposes here in the United States. Now, here's another tragic part of this, and there has got to be something that could be done about this, but I'm willing to bet that it's government bureaucracy that's preventing it. Here's a story today that from U.S. News that indicates that with these 100 victims that have been rescued from sex slavery, listen to this, if the Obama administration cannot find adequate housing for the victims, some of them may wind up in jail. These are the victims of sex trafficking. And here's what the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says. If there is nowhere to hold them and nowhere safe for them to go, law enforcement has no alternative, says Staka Sheehan, the director of the Case Analysis Division. If they aren't placed in a juvenile detention facility, the child could run back to the prostitution scenario. To avoid this, police charge the children with prostitution and place them in a detention facility until housing elsewhere becomes available. Now, we're talking about 100 young girls. I am willing to bet every dollar I've got there are 100 Christian families in this country that would take these girls in a heartbeat. They would take them in, no questions asked. They would give them a home. They would give them love. They would give them stability. And it's federal bureaucracy that keeps that from happening. Instead, because I'm sure the Obama administration isn't willing to put these girls in the hands of private families, they got to go to some government-run program. These girls could wind up in prison for prostitution, even though they are victims and have been sex trafficked. So that is what's going on out there in that part of the body politic. Cute story here before we go back to the phones. Here's an Illinois pub owner, and she's ticked off at the city because she wanted to make some improvements on her property. She wanted to use a tax increment financing tool, municipal tool, to do it. The city turned her down, so she's got a sign in the window. It's inside her establishment, but she's got a sign protesting what the city fathers have done to her. The city fathers have said, you're violating our city's sign ordinance. We're going to fine you $500 a day until you take that down. She won't take it down. She's got a total fine bill now for $31 grand for having the sign up in her window. She's now filed a federal lawsuit against the city. Let's go to the phones before the break. Let's grab a call from Billy in Conroe, Texas. Billy, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just had a name for the Washington Redskins, a new name.
Yes, sir. What's that?
The Washington Political Redskins.
The Washington Political what?
Redskins.
Okay, I still didn't get the last
the Washington Political Correct Skins.
Oh, I see. Politically correct skins. So instead of Redskins, it would be politically correct skins.
Correct skins. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great suggestion. You know, who knows? They may wind up liking that better than any of the other alternatives. All right, Karna, Hampton, North Carolina. Let's squeeze Karna in very quickly. Focal Point. Brian Fisher, got about 45 seconds. What's on your mind? Karna, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, go right ahead.
I am. I wanted to follow up on the lady that said she wondered if it wasn't deliberate to destroy our military.
Yes, uh-huh.
If there's one thing that Barack Hussein Obama has kept to his promise, it's to change America.
Yeah.
And if you read Cloward and Piven when he was first running, if you destroy the economy, control the energy, destroy the military, you've accomplished your goal, changing America.
Well, that's a good point, Karna, and I appreciate the call. Thank you for that. And I do believe, along with Karna and our last caller, that this is a deliberate strategy on the part of Obama. You know, we're the greatest, most powerful nation in the world. The only way you can bring this country down, the only way you can destroy it, is you have got to destroy the military. You've got to weaken the military so we then become vulnerable to those that want to harm us. And that's exactly what President Obama is doing. Focal Point and AFR Talk, back in 2.